Hey guys, welcome to another episode of Home, Health, and Hobby. Chef Nicholas J here. This is another entry into my beekeeping diary. This video is a little bit lengthy, I'm gonna be honest with you, but I couldn't shorten it down without sacrificing the quality of the video. There's just so much in this video that I was so fascinated with, and I hope that you guys stick around to the very end because frankly, I think that you'll be fascinated with it as well. If you're watching this video, you are already into beekeeping, or you have been thinking about getting into beekeeping, and hopefully this video maybe just might push you over the edge right into the hobby, because it's going to show you just how in-depth and rich the beekeeping world is with knowledge and wisdom and so many mentors that you can find in this hobby, and it's very rewarding, and it's one of those things where you can actually give back to your community, whether your neighbors know it or not. Dr. Jamie Ellis is the head of the Master Beekeeping Program, and that is who is in this video. He is the leading expert, in my opinion, on Varroa biology, one of the major detrimental pests to Apis mellifera, or the American honeybee, the one that most people keep as pets or manage. Anyways, let's get into the video. I hope you enjoy it, and stick around.
Course of my life, so it's going to be a challenge, because this is just a tour of a building, but we'll do our best to jazz it up for you. So just very quickly, the University of Florida campus is roughly shaped like that, kind of a rectangle, but with one corner pinched. You are in that corner. We're in the very southwest corner of campus. That's due north. Most people, when they think of the university and the swamp and all that stuff, that's that direction. Okay? Right in front of us is the lacrosse fields and the soccer fields. I promise I'm going to talk about bees. I'm just kind of orienting you here for the moment. And right over there, where most of you parked, there's the Museum of Natural History, which is free. You should go there while you are here. They do charge you to get into the butterfly exhibit, but that's one part of the museum. So the museum itself is free. Just to the north of it, just to the right, is the art museum. It is also free. You should also do that. It's fantastic. It has some nice art in it. All right, we are standing immediately over here beside me, the building that's got that funky gray monstrosity that goes around it, we call the worm. That is Steinmetz Hall. This is the entomology and nematology department. Entomology, insects. Nematology, nematodes. Nematodes are really small worm-like creatures. If you go through those buildings, you'll see posters highlighting nematodes. You are standing beside the #1 rated entomology department in the world. So, it's not a bad place to study critters if you like critters. The way the building works, I've already explained it in the class I taught, and I'm going to explain it here because people have been asking me. If you look from above that building, it looks kind of like the Starship Enterprise. That part over there is the 1,000 wing. I've been working here since 2006. I'm the honeybee professor here in the department. My first office was on the back corner of this building that you're seeing here. We had our clean lab in this building where we did all of our tox work, our molecular biology, etc. And our honeybees, as the bees fly, were about 1.5 miles away, that direction. So what you're seeing before you is a squeezing together of all of that space I once had into a much bigger space here. All right? How did this come to be? Well, the Florida State Beekeepers Association decided that they wanted to build a bee lab, and so they worked with beekeepers, the University of Florida, the state legislature, industry, and others to generate the funding to build this place. This place cost about $4.5 million once the dust settled. So in order to get there, the state gave $2 million, as long as the beekeepers would raise $200,000, and as long as the University of Florida would put in $500,000. 200, 502 equals $2.7 million, which is a little bit different than 4.5 that we needed to build the building. So the university and the beekeepers went well above and beyond what they were required to do in order to free up that $2 million. The university put in some money to above their $500,000 requirement to get here, and then the beekeepers just went berserk raising money. I mean berserk. I mean, the first day that we needed that $200,000 to loosen the $2 million, a single commercial beekeeper put down a $200,000 check just to get the $2 million. And from there, we've had beekeepers donating $1 up to $500,000. Beekeepers, industry, money just was coming in from everywhere. We had our grand opening at the end of August, and literally beekeepers believed in this project so much and were invested so much that by the time they were here, there were some crying in the halls seeing this thing come together for the first time. All right, so where are we? We're just east of the entomology and nematology building. You see this fence right behind you? I'm moving the line up with it. That fence used to split me in half. This half was horticulture, and it was all the citrus orchard. You could see, or citrus grove, my bad. You can see the citrus that's still here. It split me in half, and this half was mainly just parking back there for entomology and nematology, faculty and state trucks, etc. So we cut into this and built this. The first building is about an 8,000 square foot facility. We'll walk through. The reason we're starting out here is we want everybody else to go to their class, so the halls will be empty. Good strategy, right? Yeah. All right. This building's about 8,000 square feet. We have about an acre of apiary behind us, and behind that is a 6,500 square foot building and a teaching pavilion that's about 1,600 square feet. So we built over 16,000 square feet of space. Another reason we're starting out here is obviously you see, this is where the architect got creative. You can tell it's a BeeLab, right? Everybody who knows me knows that I'm super particular about a lot of different things. Usually when the hexagon is portrayed in art or logos, it's turned sideways because it's easier to fit a picture and words when the straight side's up. But hexagons are actually correctly oriented with the points up. And so I was like, I can't work in a building if the points aren't up, because that's just how I am. So they gave us correctly oriented windows as well as correctly oriented hexes around the outside. We're having a logo being redone right now for our BeeLab, and what it's going to be is it's going to be those three sets of hexes, those three, and those three. That will be our new logo, kind of the thumbprint of my program and all that we do. You'll see that coming out soon as the university approves it. What's crazy about this BeeLab is people haven't stopped giving. They still believe in this effort. For example, the Gainesville Garden Club got a small grant and allocation to plant trees, and they're like, well, we want to plant trees for the bee program. We're like, we got a BeeLab, why don't you plant them around here? So that effort has ballooned and ballooned and ballooned, and you're standing right here. All of this space is going to be a pollinator garden, and it's going to be kind of the annuals and perennials, the flowers and stuff that you can grow to benefit pollinators. It'll have little walkways through it and little interpretive signs telling you about the plants. But notice I said pollinator garden, not bee garden. So there'll be other things besides bees there. It'll probably stop about right over there, so people won't come look in my window while I'm working in my office, but it'll make it most of the way that way. It's the good thing about having windows in your office is you can see everything. The bad news is people like to come knock on the window and wave at you while you're working. It's like, behind us in the apiary is where they're planting their trees and shrubs. And the apiary will be the flowers that give us pollen, propolis, or nectar for beekeeping purposes. So in the back, we'll have tupelo, gallberry, palmetto, we'll have red maple trees. We'll have all of the stuff that beekeepers need to move their bees to for purposes of honey production. So essentially the front garden is a pollinator garden, the back garden is a honeybee garden. So we'll be able to use the grounds to teach people what things can be planted to the benefit of honeybees. You got that? Yep. The way the building works is it's a north-south orientation. This is the north face. Everything on the north face of this building is office. These three windows look into our graduate and student and visiting scholar offices. So our master's and PhD students, as well as our visitors from around the world. We have visitors from around the world. Right now, we have 2 people from the Netherlands here. Just yesterday, we had someone from Nigeria, Germany, Switzerland, the Netherlands. The point is a lot of people come from around the world to do work here. Because if you're in Florida, it's going to be 56 tonight and you're going to be cold. But most of the rest of the world thinks that that's not cold. So we can do bee research here nearly year-round because of our warm climate. So that makes us a very attractive space. So before we go in, the last thing I'll tell you, second to last thing I'll tell you, is the University of Florida is a land-grant institution. When I tell people I'm a professor, the first thing they ask me every time is, what do you teach? And when I first got hired, the first 5 years, I didn't have a teaching appointment. So it was really fun for me to say nothing and watch them go, because how do you interact with professors? You think of them as teachers. That is what some professors do. Some teach. Those are the ones who stand in front of students. Students pay big money to be at the University of Florida so they can wear their blue and orange and chat about alligators and stuff like that. Right? They pay big bucks. When we teach them, we're doing the teaching part of our responsibility. But a land-grant institution has 3 responsibilities, and teaching is only one of those. The second of those is one that you might could guess, which is research, where we're supposed to wear lab coats, big goggles, and that stuff, right? The researchers. We also do research here. The third thing that we're supposed to do is extension, and that's what makes land-grant institutions unique. It is our responsibility, ours, the University of Florida's responsibility, to go out into the public and teach people. It's teaching, but you guys aren't paying for credit hours. You right now are involved in extension. I am doing extension with every word that I speak. It's teaching to non-credit paying individuals. The University of Florida Extension Branch has an office in every county, our county extension offices. Most of you know extension through 4-H. 4-H is our youth extension program. But if you Google UF and just about anything you could want to do, there's a specialist here who works on that. UF turf grass, US growing citrus in my backyard, UF controlling critters on my tomatoes. Obviously, you can guess my extension responsibility is with beekeeping. We're satisfying that right now. That is what the Bee College is. It is an extension event. When I answer your emails, I'm doing extension. When I speak at your bee clubs, I'm doing extension. When I put videos online, I'm doing extension. When I am talking to you right now, I'm doing extension. But I am no longer in charge of the extension program. I am in the sense that I'm the boss, but I'm not in the sense because I don't plan any of it. That office on the right is Mary Bammer's office. She is my extension coordinator. She plans our bee colleges, our master beekeeper programs, our videos, all that stuff right there, all right? So when we go through this building, think about how we're using the space between research, extension, and instruction. So I told you that I was going to tell you 2 things. That was one. The second thing is a lot shorter than that. Not only are beekeepers buying into this with their money, but they're buying into it with their passions. One of the ways that they've done this is we have artists who are beekeepers. They have either owned art or produced art, and you'll see that on walls in the building. So as you walk through the building, appreciate the things that are hanging on the wall. That's just a flavor of what's to come as people start to donate. I'll give you an example. I shouldn't tell you this because it might disappear, but you are all honest folks. But when you walk in the front door, the painting on the wall looking at you is a $5,000 painting. It's an original Florida Highwayman painting. If you're artists, you'll know the story. There was a gentleman who taught young African-American guys how to paint, and the fellows would sell the paintings on the side of the road. The Highwaymen. A lot of those guys would grow up to be fantastic artists. I'm not sure how many of them are still alive, but one of them would paint beekeeper scenes, and that's what's on the wall when you go in. He taught his son how to paint. That fella paints beekeeping scenes, so almost all the rest of them that look like highwaymen's are a highwayman's son's paintings. So there's pictures. We've got beekeepers who donate paintings that they have done. Just appreciate it as we weave our way through the building. All right, let's go do this. You'll notice that there's art on the wall. Anytime someone sponsored a room, there'll be a frame hanging. Oh, it's behind that banner. There'll be a frame hanging by the door, literally a bee frame that has the donor information in it. And our donor wall is here. You'll notice it's all hexagons, and they're all pointing the right direction. This is just how I am. And so as I've shared, this is extension. Many of you are going to end up in the teaching classroom, so there's not much for me to say there except it's a teaching classroom. The unique feature there is the wall on the opposite side is recessed into the room, and that's so that we can put a beehive just on the outside of it. When people come visit us, we can line people up around that window and someone can be outside working bees while everybody's inside not getting stung. Yeah, it was good thinking. So this is how we're going to do this. I'm going to tell you everything here, and we're just going to walk through as a long line to end up outside. Okay. Look at the offices on the way down on the left. We tried to build this building kind of uniquely, keeping in mind some things we wanted. For example, this hall here is wider than it is down there. At some point, there's going to be shelves and all that stuff here to display beekeeping antiques. You're going to see a research lab. So just look through the doors, look at the art. This art here, for example, was a piece of art a beekeeper painted for us, Mike Paramore. So come this way, look at all the offices. So guys, you can just look through, and then we made a big window here on purpose so that you could all see it really easily, and then kind of cycle back through this way when you're done. Just look at the paintings, look at everything. We're going to end up back right. All right, guys, as you're doing that, the next thing I want to tell you is we start going down this hall. There's a great room on the right. We go to a seat, or at least look in the door.
We just maintain the rehab on the one other tooth.
Guys, we're going to have to keep stacking. There's a lot more people coming in.
That's really cool.
Yeah, that's it. That's why everything's up front.
That's a picture of it.
All right, guys, we have more people coming in. Don't crowd around the hive. So, we've been keeping it at 90. I guess someone felt sorry for you. Okay, so obviously you're in the observation hive room. I'm sorry to be talking right in front of you. Obviously, all of these ports that are down the hall are ports for future observation hives that are stacked up against the wall behind me. We have enough space for 12 observation hives. We have one going now, really just for show and tell purposes. We're not running an experiment in here at the moment. However, when we want to run an experiment, we would have 12 observation hives or up to 12 going. And really with observation hives, you can do what you want to with them, right? We can look at the effects of varroa on, foraging ability. We can look at small hive beetle impacts on honey storage. We can look at pesticide impacts on queen egg laying. With observation hives, you can look at the effects of something on some type of behavior. So we can get it up to 95 degrees in here. Why? Because bees keep their nest about 95, and observation hives are notoriously bad at thermoregulating. Think about it. Honeybees build their colonies like this. They stack their combs. We put them on top of each other because if you stack them side by side, you couldn't see all the comb, right? Yeah. So that's why they're single frame thick, 1, 2, 3. And really, they're only about the strength of a 3-frame nuke. So they're not robust, huge, kicking it colonies. But we have to do this in order to be able to watch them. And since they can't thermoregulate well, we do it for them. We really crank up the heat in here when the studies are going. So all of these ports lead outside. Your beekeepers, you know about observation hive. This is a fully functioning colony. Bees can come and go out the back window. These particular observation hives were built to accommodate the research that we do. So there's some special attributes to them. For example, as you wander by, you'll notice on the face of the observation hives, we cut these grooves in them. And that's because when you do small hive beetle research, you need to be able to see the beetles. If you don't provide them a crack, they're going to hide in the combs. If you provide them a crack, they're going to hide where you want them to hide. So if you look on this side of the observation hive on the way out, you'll see that there are beetles up in these areas that we have given them to hide. So that's a little subtle example of the ways that we have to modify our observation hives to accommodate the research. Be careful that you don't knock the jar over because there's nothing between this jar hole and the bees that's inside the observation hive. The last thing I'll tell you about this room is it's red. It's red because bees don't see red. If we watched bee behavior under regular light, we wouldn't know if they're behaving normal. So we watch them under red light to minimize the effect that this would have on their behavior. We want their behavior to change due to something we've done, not due to an artificial thing that we don't want to be part of the study. So we have the ability to make this a red light room. In fact, you have to have a special key to turn off the red, well, you can turn off the red lights, but you have to have a special key to turn on the regular lights so that someone can't screw up our studies. And in fact, that room in there is essentially a light quarantine room. We can take bees in there, do our work with them under regular lights, flip off the regular, flip on the red before coming back into here. Kind of think about it like photography. So that room really is just a light quarantine. We're going to go out of that room. Just on the other side of this wall is a door. That door is going to lead us into the apiary. We're going to coalesce there, and then we'll talk about the back buildings before we go into them. So walk by, look at these observation hives, and let me go first so that I can get us in the right spot, and then the rest of you guys. So this apiary will only ever be teaching the colonies that are absolutely necessary to have here for research purposes, and the starting ground for new colonies that are moved out to other research projects. So we will only ever have about 50 colonies here. In fact, 30 of these are supposed to be in a project. We just delayed it long enough to have bee college with them. The moment you're gone, they're getting moved out to an apiary. So over there will be a teaching apiary. Over here will be kind of our research apiary, and down the hill will be where we start our colonies that ultimately move other places. I want to make sure and keep you guys on time. But on the far left on that building is a workshop. In order to have bees and beekeep, you've got to put equipment together and have table saws and drill presses and all that stuff. That is what the leftmost third is. That is where all of our equipment is stored and where our workshop is, etc. The middle third is a licensed honey extraction, processing, and bottling facility. Data and Sons donated equipment to us that we will be setting up. It's not set up yet. We're waiting on one more piece of equipment, and UF wants to install it all at one time. But we'll have a whole commercial outfit in there, a sideline outfit, and a hobbyist outfit, bottlers, settling tanks, everything you need to teach extraction on all three levels will be in the middle building. It's already there for the most part. We just have to have it hooked up. The rightmost third will be the offices for the apiary inspection team, as well as a beekeeping museum. The beekeeping museum is going to be the most air-conditioned space because it's the only room that nobody's going in and out of all weekend. I'm going to take you into that room right now to finish our talk while we're all in the best air conditioner we've got left. So let's go this way. Remember, this building is roughly thirded. Straight behind you is our workshop. The next third is our honey extraction facility. Again, there's classrooms there. You'll all be seeing them. Just on the other side of this wall is where David Westervelt and his apiary inspection program will be housed here. Right now, it's straight through that direction. And you're in the museum room. We're not finished. What you'll notice with a lot of our buildings is that they've been built, yes, and we've moved in, yes, but they're not finished to the level that we need them to be ultimately, or we plan them to be ultimately. For example, you're in what will be the museum room. You can see the walls are all recessed. So imagine going from this front corner to that front corner and nothing but glass cabinetry. The shelves will be glass. The back wall will be a mirror. So as we display our antiques, you can see behind the pieces from up underneath the pieces. The individual whose family sponsored this room, his dad and mom collected beekeeping stuff from all around the world. He's already donated to us. So a month and a half ago when we had our grand opening, just to have something to show in the museum, we put stuff on the tables. So this isn't everything we've got or got coming. This is just a quick, let's get something out while people are coming to visit us type thing. So all three of these walls will have that cabinetry and shelving. There'll be two islands in the middle that you can walk around and look at pieces. They'll all have informational cards, all of that stuff. In addition to that, a lot of the pieces that we are getting will actually be showcased where it's relevant. For example, our extractors may be moved and put on a shelf, a display case in the honey extraction room. So really, all of the buildings will be kind of a living museum where we're working in them, but there's random antiques displayed throughout. If you remember in the front building, I told you the hall is bigger in one space than the other because we're going to put shelving there. Well, that's kind of our display of the year thing. So one year it may be the evolution of smokers. One year it may be the evolution of the beehive. One year it may be the honeys of Florida. So stuff will rotate out of here up to there to be on display. So again, almost every room in all the buildings will have antiques in them, but this is where they'll be concentrated, the spillover place. We were going to teach in this room for the bee college. We were just scared people would touch our stuff. So we've got to get our cabinetry and things up before we do that, and then we'll actually use this room for teaching. Imagine attending a class at the next bee college, you know, evolution of the beehives, and we can physically show you skips and things like that. Someone was asking me about this skip behind us. Doug McGinnis's family who donated equipment, if you're Catholic, you might know this. If you're not, you may also know it since you're a bee person. St. Ambrose is the patron saint of bees. So when he was visiting the Netherlands, he got the skep and the skep cover, and the skep cover is St. Ambrose. And it's funny, I was in Ghent, Belgium 2 weeks ago, and I saw a statue of St. Ambrose, and I'm like, there's going to be a beehive somewhere. And sure enough, when I was looking, he was leaning on a skep in a Catholic church in Ghent, Belgium. So the point is, there's bee art really everywhere if you just know what you're looking for. Doug's family specialty were kind of honey pots. There's $1,000 honey pots on display on that white table, which is really why we're trying to tell people not to touch it. You are officially the only group that will be in here all week because I think this is the only tour that's being led of all the facilities. So the door's otherwise locked. People aren't going to otherwise wander in. So you'll see some of the pieces that we have heading in our direction. One of the, there's a lot of neat stories behind it, like this extractor here. That extractor, it's not old in the sense that it's prehistoric, but it's neat because I work here. My predecessor's Malcolm Sanford. His predecessor's a guy named Millage Murphy. Millage Murphy died in 1977. He taught beekeeping classes at the University of Florida for a long time. One of his last students stayed in contact with him. And when he died, Millage Murphy's spouse gave that student the extractor that he just gave to us for the Beekeeping Museum. So that extractor in the 60s and 70s, maybe the 50s, was used to teach beekeeping and extraction to students both here at the university as well as beekeepers around the state of Florida. I think that's pretty cool. It's kind of a neat piece of University of Florida history. When beekeepers heard that we were donating antiques, one of my favorite pieces was just brought to us, and you'll see it when you wander around. This is just an observation beehive. And when I hear that, I think a glass beehive that we use for research purposes. But this is literally a hive that you can take the wooden panels off the side of the box to expose the glass through which you can see the bees working. It's AI root. If any of you buy Bee Culture or have the book, The ABC and XYZ of Beekeeping, they used to be a beekeeping equipment company. Now they just do candles, publish Bee Culture, and redo ABC and XYZ every few years. So this is a root piece of an equipment that still has the original root logo on the front. Thing's probably 100 years old. And that's just neat to me, to be able to have this stuff on display here and then throughout the building, to be able to use it for teaching purposes once we are fully operational. We're having this bee college at about 80 to 90% operational. We just can't not have a bee college. We have to have one because people want one. But hopefully by the next one, and even one certainly a year from now, we'll have everything built, everything on display, everything up and running. It'll be an even better experience than what you ever have. As a young whippersnapper, old stuff was so boring. But I now know that I'm crossing the old threshold because old stuff starts to interest me. So this is what they call a gum hive, a log gum. Okay, so beekeepers originally in Europe, which is where beekeeping really kind of started, because in Europe they would claim trees that bees lived in. So that's my tree, that's your tree, and then they'd harvest the honey. Then they started cutting above the colony in the tree and below the colony in the tree to excise out the part of the trunk that had the bees in it, and that morphed into what we call gums in Florida. It's usually called log hives in the rest of the world. The reason that they have the nickname gum, any Aussies in here? South Africa, any Aussies? You wouldn't know the answer to this anyway, because South Africa and Australia now share just about all their plants. Yeah. Australians don't call eucalyptus eucalyptus. They call them gums. So when you're in Australia, they'll talk about the blue gum and this gum and that gum. They're talking about eucalyptus trees. So originally, the bees were nesting here and imported eucalyptus trees, so we called them gums, log gums. Gums, because they're, right? Now, most of the rest of the world calls them log hives, and that's simply the excised part out that the bees are in. So originally, bees were kept in this, and you'll see when you come by, there's some wooden dowels run through it, and in subsequent hives, or subsequent colonies, that would give the bees a structure on which they could build their combs. It is an illegal way to keep bees now in the state of Florida. Why? Why is it illegal? You can't inspect it. In Florida, you're only legally allowed to work colonies where the frames are removable. So you have to be able to take them in and out of the hives. Now, are they going to throw you in prison? Likely not. But log gums now are an antique. What I like about this is if you know anything about bees, you know this was used because I can look in and see the wax moth cocoon excavations in the walls of this box. So another neat thing that's over there, in that corner, there's a little wooden bear that's carved in front of a honey pot. Doug's father went and spoke in Russia at Apiamundia. So, you know, there's batrillions of beekeeping organizations on the planet. There's local clubs in the U.S., there's state clubs, there's regional clubs, there's an Eastern, Middle, and Western United States club. There's 2 national organizations because, as you know, people don't like each other, right? And so you can always tell when people like each other or not by counting the number of clubs that are in an area. If your state has 2 clubs, and there are states that have 2 clubs, nationally there's 2 clubs. But that's an okay thing. It's just people, right? It's also how churches are born. It's not supposed to be. I work in a church, so I can make that statement. It's not the way churches are supposed to be born, but it's the way that they usually are born. Nevertheless, there is an international group called Apiamundia. It's an international group for beekeepers. It meets every 2 years, and in the 70s, it was in Russia, and Doug's father spoke at it, and they gave the speakers carved bears with pots. There's still 40-year-old honey from Russia in the pot. The reason we know that is when Doug brought it over, it was in the box, lying on its side, and when he took it out of the box, honey had leaked out of the rim. That's the cool story of stuff that's already showing up in this museum. I mean, I think it's going to be super cool when it's here and when it's scattered throughout the building. Did you appreciate the art that was on the walls? That's just some of what's coming our way. It's gorgeous. One of the things I like about highwayman paintings is when you look at them, you unequivocally know that you're in the state of Florida. It's Florida. You're looking at Florida scenes when you see highwayman paintings. The one that most people aren't going to even see is just on the other side of this wall. The bathroom for this building is a hall that's right over there, and there's a big highwayman's son painting in it. The reason it's in the back building instead of the first one doesn't have a beehive in it. It's just a picture of an old barn kind of falling down with some turkeys. But it's gigantinormous. Make sure you go to the bathroom in this building just so you can see it. So just remember, when this place is fully operational, even our workshop's going to have art, antiques in it. Like these foundation presses that are here. You know, you get wax, you put it in sheets, and you turn a crank through a foundation press, and it comes out the other end with the hexagons on it. I mean, we're going to have stuff like that throughout the building. So art, I could go on for days, but just in here, we have 3 people from a local retirement community who in their retirement years are becoming stained glass artists, and they've each claimed a window, and they're going to make stained glass beekeeping. I mean, this place is just going to be an amazing place to be. Our grounds, our facility right next door to the entomology department, this is it. This is it. So I got to say thank you because you made it possible. So any other questions before I knock off in about 4 more minutes?
What is that long wooden piece?
What's the long wooden thing? Okay. So the only way I can explain it is by starting over here, and I realize that there are lots of you in this room, so the only way I can explain this is by holding it up. All of you know that, we'll do this. You can buy honey, maybe most of you know. You can coerce bees to make honey in wooden sections that go in frames. These are called sections. And the sections come in 2 pieces of wood. One of them's been snapped. But they come in 2 pieces of wood. So what the beekeepers had to do was fold it here and fold it here, and then join them here, and then they put the foundation in. So they had a tool to help form and join the sections. That's what this is. You would actually put the section pieces here, and you would step on the pedal, and it would just push the two pieces of wood together. So I answer the question using this, because this piece over here on the floor is just the floor version of it. When you all eventually see it, they put the section pieces here while it was up, and then they just pushed it down, which stuck it together. So you'll see a lot of those cool pieces of equipment coming in. So I'm going to give you 4 more minutes to wander through here. I can't leave here until we're all gone, because I got to relock.